Jets and the Giants' first preseason game featured an impressive debut from the Giants rookie. So let's dive into it with the Giants beat writer from The Athletic, Dan Duggan, joining us. Dan, good to have you in studio. The Dan that everybody's talking about, though, is Daniel Jones, who had a perfect drive, the first game of the preseason. I know it's just one drive, but there were some excellent passes. The Giants, though, have kind of hid him from us and at the same time tried to pump him up. But now that he actually had success, they're curiously trying to tell everybody to pump the brakes. How do you measure that? How do you square that circle?
Yeah, no, it's been a tricky balance for them because as soon as they made the pick, everyone crushed them. So then they have to tell you how good the guy is so they don't look like they made a bad pick. Yeah. So they've been doing that for a couple of months, and then he gets out in the field and looks better than anyone could have imagined. But now people are starting to say, oh, he should be starting over Eli. They don't want that either. So now Pat Shurmur has to come out and say, slow your roll. I mean, you would think you'd be, jumping through the ceiling if a guy goes 5 for 5 in his first performance. Instead, they're saying, hey, let's not get carried away here, which is not the typical reaction when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of makes people question, well, what are you trying to hide from us here? But okay, so I think the big question is, what does Daniel Jones have to do to be in the conversation to challenge Eli for that job? Is it be just as good as Eli, or does he have to be markedly better than Eli?
He has to be remarkably better. I mean, it's not a competition yet, and it won't be until he gets real reps with the first team in practice, because he was behind the first team offensive line the other night, but it's not going to be the same thing until day in and day out. He's with the ones, splitting reps with Eli, then you're comparing apples to apples. I don't think that's going to happen, so I just don't think he's really ever going to get a fair shot to win the competition out of camp. I think if he takes over the job, it'll be in season. But yeah, for him to actually really make a charge of this job, he's going to have to do what he did the other night in the next couple of preseason games and just make the decision impossible for him to turn down.
That's the thing, though. I mean, the NFL is a harsh reality. This isn't like baseball or basketball where you have this nice little farewell tour. You are in the league, and the next minute you are out of the league. So how difficult is it going to be for the Giants to really navigate this delicate matter of Eli Manning?
Well, they've spent about the last year and a half trying to figure out how to navigate that. They're 0 for 1. It obviously didn't go very well when they benched for Geno Smith. So, yeah, they're trying to figure out what that delicate balance is. They've thrown out the Kansas City model where maybe he sits for the entire year. I don't think anyone believes that'll really be the case. But they don't have a clear roadmap that they're going to follow. I think they're going to let the season play out, let Eli's performance probably dictate it, which is kind of fair to your point of it is a business. And if he performs well, then maybe you can extend that run a little longer. But otherwise, they got Daniel Jones with the 6th pick. He's not going to sit on the bench if Eli's not performing.
I can appreciate that. I mean, but we've been expecting Eli to return to form over the last couple of years, and clearly that's not happened. And I can't imagine a scenario where you lose your top receiving threat and the offense gets better. So what are the chances that Eli can have that bounce-back season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not expecting it. As you mentioned, you lose.
It would be a surprise.
Yeah, you lose a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. I know the offensive line should be better. They've really geared this offense around Saquon Barkley. I don't buy that you're going to see 2011 Eli Manning. Maybe he can kind of be steady and they, game manager and they hang around games. But again, you're looking long term here. Daniel Jones is going to be hopefully your quarterback for the next 15 years. The experience he's going to get, the sooner he gets it, that'll benefit him down the road. So if you're just trying to fight to go 8-8 with Eli Manning, that doesn't help you in the long run. So I think the sooner they get to Daniel Jones, probably the better.
Don't you think that they actually need the fan base to be behind Daniel Jones before they make this move? I mean, that would mitigate at least a little of the bad blood of saying goodbye to Eli.
People were ready to storm the gates of MetLife Stadium when they thought Geno was going to start over Eli in a home game, and they quickly reversed course there. So, yeah, no. And that's what Thursday night's performance does. Probably more than anything, it does win over the fan base. It gets excitement in the fan base. And, again, Pat Shurmur's trying to tamp that down a bit because he doesn't want a full-blown quarterback controversy. But you can see it with your eyes. He looked a lot better than a lot of people expected, a lot better than people thought he would when they picked him in April and everyone was booing the pick. So that's the way to win him over, and he definitely took a good first step.
All right, let's talk about the defense. They lost 2 Pro Bowlers this offseason, Landon Collins, Olivier Vernon. It's been kind of a quiet defense, I guess, is the best way to say it. What's the evaluation of the defense right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big unknown. We've obviously spent pretty much all offseason talking about Odell and Eli Manning and Daniel Jones, but this defense is the thing they point the finger at that really was the cause of their 5-11 season. And you look at it on paper, unless you're a super optimist, I don't see how you can say it got better because you did lose guys like Collins and Vernon. Now, again, maybe down the road because they have a lot of youth there. They use draft picks, to beef that up. but you're putting a lot of faith in rookies if you really think they're going to turn it around this year. So I think that's the huge question mark going into the season. So even if the offense is a little bit better, I don't think this defense is going to be able to carry them.
And like you said, they have a lot of young talent. It doesn't seem like there is a strong voice, at least from the outsider's perspective, doesn't seem like there's a strong voice in that locker room. Do they need a leader on the defensive side?
Yeah, I mean, Alec Ogletree was the captain last year, and he is that guy to an extent. But I think the guy they're really counting on to really become that leader is Jabrill Peppers. I mean, he's kind of taken Landon Collins' spot. He's a very vocal guy, passionate guy. They think he's going to be a great player. That always goes a long way as far as leadership. You can only lead so much if you're riding the bench. So that's the guy. He plays with a ton of emotion. He's young, so we'll see if he can grow into that role because a lot of guys have sort of been thrust into leadership roles and it hasn't worked out. But they have a ton of faith in him both on the field and in the locker room.
Well, speaking of Jabrill Peppers and Golden Tate were both the, I guess, corresponding moves to the big offseason losses of Odell Beckham Jr. and Landon Collins, if you will. Does Dave Gettleman need those guys to have superstar seasons to, I guess, help mitigate the pain of losing the big stars?
And I'd say Peppers especially because he's kind of a twofold because, A, you kind of let Landon Collins walk, so Peppers is the replacement for him. And, of course, he was kind of the big piece back in the Odell trade. I mean, I know they had draft picks, but in terms of, a tangible return, it was Peppers. And they were insistent on him being in that deal because, again, they really believe in him. So if he comes in, his first 2 seasons haven't been as good as sort of the hype was when he came out. And as much as the Giants think he's going to take this next step, you need to see it to believe it. So they need him to really be at Landon Collins' level, a Pro Bowl level player. Golden Tate, I mean, he's 31 years old. He's probably going to miss the first 4 games with suspension. No one expects him to be Odell, but he has been very productive throughout his career. So if he can at least be, a very solid number 2 option, maybe to Sterling Shepard, and kind of move the chains, which he's done all his career, but he's never going to make anybody forget about Odell.
I think putting all your eggs in the basket of believing that Jabrill Peppers can be a Pro Bowl talent is a little risky, considering we've seen that at that safety position, guys usually get it within the first couple of years.
Yeah.
There's not like a light that flips on in the 3rd year for most of those guys. That happens for receivers. That doesn't happen for safeties.
I mean, look at Landon Collins. After his 2nd season, he was, I think, 3rd in the Defensive Player of the Year voting.
Right.
This is the guy that everyone couldn't wait to get rid of all of a sudden because of all his deficiencies. I mean, Jabrill Peppers, rookie year was rough. 2nd year, he was a part-time player. He played about 2/3 of the snaps. Now, again, you can say it was a different system and Cleveland's coaching, whatever. He hasn't done it. By this point in Landon Collins' career, he was already an elite player. You can say his play dropped off a little bit, but Jabrill Peppers has still never even reached really Landon Collins' floor.
Okay, so finally I got to ask because the Mayor has put a lot of, faith in Gettleman with the ability to reconstruct this entire franchise over the past couple of years. He's heard the heat from the media. He's got the heat from the fans. But what would it take for him to feel pressure from above?
That's a great question, and one we're looking forward to ask John Mara the next time he speaks. He's kind of kept a low profile this offseason, but I don't think he's a guy who wants to be, changing GMs, changing coaches every 2 years. I mean, they've had a very long stretch of GMs here. So I think that he's going to have some time. But that is a great question, though. How much patience will you have? Because Dave Gettleman hasn't just made a couple superficial changes. He's taken out the wrecking ball and torn the house down to the studs.
Down to the studs.
So, I mean, you have
unapologetic about it in his press conference.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you went 5-11 last year. I think you get a pass there. But if it's 5-11 again, or if they don't see some strides this year, I think the fan patience will definitely really start to run out. I don't think Mara is going to be too quick with the trigger there, but it definitely is a question that probably needs to be answered because what does he consider success? What is he looking for in year 2? Because it's a rebuild. You want to see some steps forward.
It better be more than 5 wins.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you that right now. All right, you can get all of his insights on The Athletic. Giants beat writer Dan Duggan, thank you so much for coming in, man.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
All right.